Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Tonight we're going to be looking at Sergeant Preston of the Yukon, number 26, a Dell comic published in 1958. But before we get into this, I wanted to apologize. The last video I put up, Comics Compendium, I put it up, it was truncated. I ran out of storage space a few pages before the comic was done. I basically said, fuck it, I'll put it up, and then the next video, I'll just add a little 5-minute bit where I look at the last few pages. I put it up, I posted it, and then I regretted it and realized, even by my standards, that's too unprofessional for this channel. So I remade the video. I figured out how to edit. So I videotaped that last 10 minutes or so. I figured out how to edit, mush them together through some app, and I re-put it up. But some people had already watched it, and so I'm sorry to waste your time. But all you got to do is, it's the same video except the last 10 minutes. So if you watch that truncated version, the new version that's up now, the past almost a day now it's been up, the new version. Just watch the last 10 minutes and you'll get the rest of the story. I also wanted to mention, inadvertently, I didn't even plan this, but 3 out of 4 of the last videos have been very Canadian-centric. And so after the fact, I would like to dedicate the past few days to one of our senior trustees here at the Academy, Archibald Gernsback, our Canadian correspondent and contributor. So, I didn't even plan it. I realized, I was like, wait, except for Daredevil, everything's had a Canadian connection. And I didn't even plan it or realize it until just reading the Sergeant Preston comic. Let's get into it, though. We start off with a photo cover, as many Dell comics did. I believe Sergeant Preston was a TV show, or maybe a series of movies, maybe both. I think he might be from fiction, adapted from stories. I don't know, but I do know that I grew up knowing who Sergeant Preston of the Yukon was. It's one of those classic characters. I just never saw any of his, the filmed versions of them or read this comic. But I also should mention that this is part of the Andy D'Angelis Memorial section of the Academy's library, and in our special collections. And that's why we are looking at this. Let's crack it open. So we start off with the Sourdough Miner. So like a lot of these Dell comics, they always have little educational one-pagers. This is just some Western lore, what it was like growing up in the Old West. Well, in the old Canadian West. And this is just a weird little thing about how these miners used to make this weird sourdough mix to make bread. And I thought this was interesting, how they would just keep it in their pocket, this lump of sourdough, and the starter, if you will. And there'd be like bullets and matches and buttons in it, and nails. I don't know why they didn't just wrap it in a handkerchief. It's very strange. I'm remiss in mentioning the art. The writer of this is unknown, this one-pager, but it is, as all the art in this issue, is by the great Alberto Giolitti, the artist probably most famously known for his work on Turok, Son of Stone. And he's just an amazing cartoonist. He's the kind of cartoonist you can set your watch to. It's like almost kind of Russ Heath-like in his precision. And, nothing too flashy, never excite that, that kind of art, but just rock solid cartooning chops. Just so good at being an illustrator. And we can already see that in this black and white page. So now we start with the first Sergeant Preston story, Smuggler's Cash. All the Sergeant Preston stories in this comic are written by Gaylord Dubois, who wrote thousands of stories for Dell Comics over the decades. He was very prolific. And like I said, the art's by Giolitti. So we start off on the Alaskan border. Sergeant Preston meets up with an American marshal, a United States Marshal, and the United States Marshal warns him, tells him that there was a trading post on the the Alaskan side. It was burned down. They shot the proprietor, and they basically took all of the trading goods. They cleaned it out. So he's basically saying, keep an eye out for these guys. We also, down here, we meet King. Well, his full name is Yukon King. This is the dog team leader of his, dog sled crew. It's also like his best friend. He's the one that we get exposition from because he's talking to the dog all the time. It's kind of funny how these Mountie tales, they're Westerns, right? Instead of the desert, it's all snowy. It's the Canadian Yukon. And instead of your best friend being your horse, it's your dog team leader, your dog. Because horses aren't as good in the snow. But these stories are basically Westerns. Him and King are camping down for the night. Sergeant Preston digs this little trench to keep them from the too much of the exposed elements. I think it's weird that the other dogs they're not allowed to sleep in the little pit he made. It's just for him and King. Fuck the other dogs. King starts smelling something. He finds this little mini cave here, an entrance, and inside Sergeant Preston finds all of the stolen goods from that trading post. All perfectly illustrated goods from that trading post. And he finds a pair of old shirts. He figures that the two thieves are, because there's two shirts, he figures it's probably two guys. He figures that they took off their old shirts and, put on some shirts from the loot. Because, basically everything there everything there is what you'd find at a trading post. There's dried food, there's rope and mining equipment and axes. And so he gives King the scent. So now King can trail these guys. Basically, he figures he'll go to the nearest Canadian trading post and see if the guys are there. He shows up at this place, talks to one of these store owners, and he asks him, any new guys in town? Any strangers? He says, yeah, there's these two guys named Murphy and Woolman. In fact, they're going to open a trading post any day now. They're talking about their plans in direct competition with me. I guess they hang out at the local cafe. So he heads out to the cafe. King is totally, he's got the scent. He walks in. He sees some guys playing poker. When he asks the bartender, turns out two of them are this Murphy and Woolman characters. Look at the illustration here. Some of these faces, the way he draws them, just so good. This is just a nice illustration. I like how King is just like sitting right in front of one of the bad guys. He's like, get this dog out of here. What the hell is he doing? Sergeant Preston doesn't want to show his hand, so he says, leave the gentleman alone, King. But he's pretty sure it's like, oh, these are the guys. And he surmises that as soon as the first big snow comes, they're going to go to their stash, bring it back, open it, use it as their stock for their new trading post. He figures, it'll cover their trail. So that's why they're waiting for the snow. And soon enough, a snow starts. So he heads over to that little cave with King. He gets there before the bad guys. He's lying in wait. And of course, the guys, Preston wants to catch him red-handed. Just like looking at little things like the way the folding and clothes, the drapery, the way he inks it. He's just really good. And just great faces. He's really good at drawing dogs, too. Like, look at this great panel here. That's amazing. Oh, there's so much good art in this. So Sergeant Preston lets himself be known. Says, you're under arrest. These guys aren't going to go down without a fight. So we have a little scuffle. King helps out, jumps at the guy who's shooting at Sergeant Preston. So the guy pulls out a whip. But of course, Sergeant Preston prevails, as he always does. And he arrests these two guys. And every story ends with him talking to King saying, oh, Well, another case closed, King. And King usually responds by saying rough or Next, we have Sergeant Preston, Gold for Ashes. We start off the story, we see these two no-good-nicks, Jip Waller and Ty Caddis. They're a pair of thieving bush tramps on the run. They're running from the Indians in the area, and they're pretty scared. Apparently, they've stolen a bunch of gold that belonged to these Indians, this gold dust. So they're caught in a terrible snowstorm, and they're lost. And they end up falling off of this ridge into a ravine. Look at just that way he inks the rock here. It actually almost looks like Kirby inked by Royer. Just such solid, chunky inking. It looks really nice. Meanwhile, we see this young man. He's just walking around yelling, help. King hears him. There's another great drawing of King. So good at drawing dogs. It's like, I wish Steve Ditko took a page out of his book and maybe studied under him for a little while to learn how to draw dogs. And Sergeant Preston and King find the kid, this youngster. It turns out his dad is a doctor. And basically those bush tramps, the bad guys, they were tied. They at gunpoint, they tied the doctor and this kid, his son, to the sled, stole the gold dust that they were entrusted with keeping for the Indians, because the Indians trusted the doctor. They said, would you hold on to our gold dust? I don't know why they didn't hold on to their own gold dust. It doesn't really make sense. His father chewed through the leather straps around his hand, the leather tongs, and he escaped. He couldn't catch up to the sled to rescue his father because he fell off the sled. And so now he's looking for his father. The father is, as far as he knows, is still captured and tied up on the sled. Sergeant Preston, of course, says, we'll trail your dad. And of course, King gets to work. Eventually, they find the spot where the sled fell off the cliff. King smells the trail. It's the end of the trail. Sergeant Preston looks down. He can kind of see the sled poking out of the snow, but he doesn't see any signs of life or bodies. So he says, Donnie, you stay here. You're still, a week from your travail. Me and King will go down. They go down there. They find the corpses of the two bad guys. But they don't find the body of Dr. Goodis. So it's good. But Sergeant Preston fears the worst. He's like, it's a pretty small chance he's alive, but the son will not believe it. It's like, I know my father's alive. I know it. So they continue on. They decide to go back to their cabin where the doctor and his son lived. They figured maybe he made his way back there. When they get there, it's burnt down. The whole cabin's burnt, and there's no sign of a body in there. So, of course, this kid David's very sad. I think his name's Donnie. Donnie's very sad. I think the dogs here just don't give a shit. They're just resting there. We don't care. So now they decide to go to the Indian village. And Sergeant Preston says, they're called the Yellow Knee Indians. I don't know if that's historically accurate. He says, hey, it's me, Sergeant Preston. We brought your gold back. The chief says, where's Doc Party? And he tells them, he's like, he's captured by the men who actually stole your gold. They assume that Doc Party stole their gold. And it turns out that they actually burned down the cabin. When they went to the cabin and the gold was gone and Doc Party and Donnie were gone, they burnt it down in anger. And the chief admits it. Look at this great panel there. That is some amazing illustration. It's just rock solid. So he says, we will adopt Donnie since his father seems to be dead. And then all of a sudden the father comes in. And I guess he fell off the sled before it crashed. So he was okay. But he has a hurt leg, so it took him a while. The Indians agreed to use that gold to build them a new house. They feel bad about it. And they say, yeah, and you'll make us, our sick Indians, well. And once again, well, King, we'll call this case closed. And this time, King has no comment. We have one of those one-page stories to appease the Postmaster General, and it's called Trails End. Unknown writer, unknown artist. Probably for the best, he stays unknown. Kind of probably some young artist, they gave him a chance there. It's actually a pretty good story about some, miner getting in a conflict with a bear. As far as those one-page stories go, it was pretty good. So this next story, we don't know who the writer is. It's Grey Wolf, leader of the pack. But of course it is Giolitti art, thank God. Because he's so good at drawing animals. And guys, I'm a sucker for these kind of stories. Any story, Dell did a lot of these. Like, they had that story all about the Lone Ranger's horse Silver, which were just about horses in the wild and their adventures with no humans. And that's what this is. It's one of these stories. I freaking love these stories. I don't know why, but I do. So Grey Wolf is the leader of a wolf pack, his mate, and 5 cubs. They see a bear fishing for his 2 cubs. And he realizes, okay, I'm not going to, sometimes they wait for scraps from the bears' fishing expeditions. But they're like, I got to teach my cubs how to hunt anyway. So we're going to go find some rabbits. Unfortunately, Brownie, the largest of the pups, wanders off. He's got other ideas. And he runs up to the 2 cubs with their little fish and tries to steal it. Well, he does steal it. The cubs start running after him, and the mama bear hears all of this, and she runs, and she starts trying to get Brownie. God, look how good he just draws all these animals. His cubs are cute as hell too, the way he draws them. And so Grey Wolf bites him in the ass to protect his son, and the 2 little bear cubs run up this tree. I guess they're just scared of all this action. It's just so cute to me, the way they're sitting up there looking down. So eventually Grey Wolf and his mate run off. Meanwhile, Brownie hasn't learned his lesson, and now he's going after the giant fish that the bear just got out of the river. And he brings it back to the family. And inwardly, Grey Wolf was pleased at his son's gumption. And then the 5 bear cubs all fight over it. It's a free-for-all. And Grey Wolf and his mate, his nameless mate, they look on approvingly, knowing that this kind of mock battle will prepare them for their grown-up years, grimmer struggles in their grown-up years. It's not much of a story, guys. I don't know why I love these kind of stories. They're just little incidences in the lives of animals, their day-to-day struggle for survival, but total sucker for them. Next, we have the last story of Sergeant Preston in this issue, Vanished Evidence. So Sergeant Preston is hanging out with another Mountie, Constable Maynard, when all of a sudden these townspeople show up. They've got a sled with a dead body on it. It's Sven Svensson. He's murdered with this axe. The guy's holding up the axe. Look how great he draws Preston's face there. That's really nice. I guess Sven Svensson is a miner who just sold his claim for a lot of money. And this guy holding the axe is named Bobby Clue. And Bobby Clue is really just like, I know who it is. It's old Olson. I found him. He was bending over him last night at 9. I showed up. And I saw Old take a wallet from Sven's pocket. I yelled after him, and he ran off into the woods. Preston is a little confused because he's like, Old Olson, him and Sven were very close friends. They came to the Yukon together. But this guy's just like, no way, he's guilty. He ran off into the woods with just a shirt on. That's how scared he was. So Sergeant Preston says, okay, settle down, guys. We'll look into this. God, that's a great panel of King. Look at that. So, of course, they go off. And they go to old Olson's house, and they find the townspeople had beaten them there. They're about to lynch him. They're sure he's guilty. They all believe, what's his face? Let me get his name again. I already forgot his name. Bobby Clue. And Sergeant Preston says, they'll meet the Queen's justice. And we'll have none of this mob justice. Just go home, you guys. Of course, Olson protests his innocence. He says, I went over there to congratulate him. We're friends. I never would have taken his wallet. We came over from Norway together. And this is his reminiscence flashback. And he says that they were drinking coffee together. The fire ran low, so Sven went outside with his axe to get some more firewood. Ole heard this almost like a howling sound, and when he ran out to find Sven's dead body, he saw some figure running away. He wasn't sure if it was a man or beast. That's when Bobby Clue showed up, and he got scared because he was accusing him of killing him, and he ran off into the woods. So he basically says to Maynard, okay, take Ole Olson into protective custody. We don't want these guys lynching him. And I'm going to go to Sven Svensson's. I'm going to go to the scene of the crime, see what's going on. He shows up there. God, just his layouts even, Giolitti. He's just a consummate comic book artist. It's just the precision work. So he, does some detective work. Snoops around. And 20 hours later, though, the townspeople show up again at the Mountie station. And they're like, we want Ole Olson. We're going to hang him. Look at these weird faces in the background here. Very interesting. But good. Maynard says, guys, Sergeant Preston's going to be here any second. We'll get to the bottom of this. So Preston shows up with all the answers. Says, first of all, there's no way that Bobby at 9:30 p.m. in the dark could see that Olson had the wallet in his hand. He also says that Ole killed Sven with his axe. Careful examination of the wounds proved beyond doubt that the death-dealing instrument was not an axe. And you'd think they would have noticed that earlier. That seems like a pretty big thing. And then he says, he lifts this tarp up. He brought something back in his sled. This black bear killed Sven Svensson. He struck the animal with his axe before he fell, though. You can see the axe wound right here. Yukon King tracked the bear, and Preston shot him. I don't know. Seems unnecessary. He found the wallet, still full of banknotes, under the floor of Bobby Clue's cabin. Bobby Clue pulls out a gun and is like, don't anybody move. You won't take me alive. And once again, King saves the day and bites his wrist. And Preston puts Clue into custody. And once again, he proclaims that the case is closed. And one of the townspeople says, and what fools we were. We have another one of those little instructional pages of wilderness lore, dangers of the trail, unknown writer again, drawn by Giolitti. And another interesting thing about encounter of a man and a bear. God, his art in black and white looks really nice. Just look at that ink. It's so solid. It's really nice. So there you go, guys. Sergeant Preston of the Yukon, number 26 from 1958. Hope you enjoyed looking at it with me tonight. It's weird, these comics. I gotta be honest, the writing's not that good. These stories are pretty dull. They're very by the numbers, like most of the Dell comics of the time. This is mainly about the beautiful art by Alberto Giolitti. So, but it's definitely worth keeping for that alone. And once again, shout out to Andy D'Angelis and wherever he is. And I'm honored that I get to be the caretaker of his lifelong collection. And over the next few months, we'll be looking at more of his stuff. So thanks for watching, guys. And hopefully I'll see you here next time at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.